When actor William Frawley passed away in 1966, Hollywood lost one of its most unforgettable stars. Known for playing the grumpy but lovable Fred Mertz on I Love Lucy and the wisecracking Bub on My Three Sons, Frawley's real-life personality wasn't too far off from the characters he played. He had a tough exterior, a sharp wit, and a reputation that made him both loved and feared in the industry. But what happened at his funeral shocked everyone. A surprise guest showed up, someone no one expected to see. Was it an old friend or an old rival? Join us as we dive into the life of William Frawley, his feuds, friendships, and the mystery guest who made an unexpected appearance at his funeral. A humble beginning. William Frawley was born on February 26, 1887 in Burlington, Iowa, in a family of 4 children. His parents, Michael and Mary Frawley, were hard-working people, and their lives revolved around their Catholic faith. William grew up attending Catholic schools and even sang in the choir at St. Paul's Catholic Church. His mother, Mary, was deeply religious and didn't approve of his interest in acting. But William loved performing. As a young man, he found joy in taking small roles in local theater productions at the Burlington Opera House. He also performed in amateur shows, even though his mother discouraged these activities. Still, his desire to entertain stayed strong. When he was old enough, William got his first job as a stenographer for the Union Pacific Railroad in Omaha. But this office life didn't fulfill him. After 2 years, he moved to Chicago and found work as a Kuro reporter. It was there that he secretly began performing again, landing a singing part in the musical comedy The Flirting Princess. This decision upset his mother, and to keep the peace, William moved to St. Louis to work for another railroad company. Despite trying to live a life his mother approved of, William couldn't ignore his dream of becoming an entertainer. Chasing his dreams, William and his younger brother Paul created a vaudeville act together. They worked well as a team, but after 6 months, their mother insisted Paul return home to Iowa. William didn't give up. He wrote a script called Fun in a vaudeville agency and sold it for over $500, which was a huge amount of money at the time. Encouraged by this success, William moved west to Denver, where he found work as a singer in a cafe. There, he teamed up with pianist Franz Rath, and together they created an act called A Man, a Piano, and a Nut. Their performances gained popularity, and the duo soon moved to San Francisco, where their act became a hit. During his vaudeville career, William introduced several popular songs, including My Mammy, My Melancholy Baby, and Carolina in the Morning. Decades later, in 1958, he even recorded an album called Bill Frawley Sings the Old Ones, showcasing these classic tunes. William's success in vaudeville eventually led him to Broadway, making it on Broadway and in film. His first big break came in 1925 with the musical comedy Mary Mary. Later, in 1932, he earned a dramatic role in the play 20th Century, where he played press agent Owen O'Malley. This role marked a shift in his career as he began exploring dramatic acting. Although William's first appearance in film came in 1916 with 2 short silent films, he didn't fully dive into a movie career until the 1930s. In 1933, he appeared in Moonlight and Pretzels, a feature musical by Universal Studios. This opportunity led him to Hollywood, where he signed a 7-year contract with Paramount Pictures. Over the years, William established himself as a dependable character actor. He appeared in more than 100 films, spanning genres like comedy, drama, musicals, and even westerns. Some of his memorable roles included the baseball manager in Alibi Ike, 1935, the wedding host in Charlie Chaplin's Monsieur Verdoux, 1947, and a political advisor in the holiday classic Miracle on 34th Street, 1947. Though he was never a leading man, his consistency and versatility kept him busy in Hollywood. The road to television. By the early 1950s, William's movie career began to slow down. He had built an impressive resume, but opportunities were becoming fewer, partly due to his reputation for drinking and being difficult to work with. As he reached his early 60s, he realized he needed to pivot. Pop culture historian Jeffrey Mark described William's situation, saying he had been in 100 films. He had been on the vaudeville stage. He had been a handsome song and dance man who introduced the songs Carolina, In the Morning, and My Melancholy Baby. But by this point, the parts weren't as many as they used to be. In show business, you reach a certain age, and they just don't have as many old man parts as they have young man parts. Still, William wasn't ready to give up on his career. In 1951, he transitioned to television and landed the role of Fred Mertz on I Love Lucy. The grumpy but lovable landlord quickly became a fan favorite, proving that William still had the charm and talent to entertain audiences. His career in TV gave him a new lease on life, ensuring his legacy as one of Hollywood's most beloved character actors. Speaking of Hollywood's most beloved character actors, William Frawley is a name that instantly comes to mind. With his grumpy yet lovable personality, he brought characters like Fred Mertz from I Love Lucy and Bub O'Casey from My Three Sons to life. But Frawley's road to success wasn't always smooth. From struggling to find work in his later years to dealing with his reputation for drinking, his journey is one of resilience, talent, and a bit of old Hollywood drama. The road to I Love Lucy. By the early 1950s, William Frawley's film career was slowing down. He had been in over 100 movies, but opportunities were becoming scarce. When he read about I Love Lucy being developed from the radio show My Favorite Husband, he saw an opportunity. He believed the show would need an older couple to play alongside Lucille Ball and Desi Arnaz, and he wanted in. Frawley took the bold step of meeting with Desi Arnaz himself and asked, "What have these other guys got that I don't?" Arnaz's response was brutally honest. "It's not what they have that you don't. It's what they don't have that you do, your alcoholism." Arnaz was putting a lot of money into the show and couldn't afford any risks. Despite the concerns, they made a deal. If Frawley showed up drunk, forgot his lines, or missed rehearsals, he would lose his pay for the week. A second offense would mean getting fired, and Arnaz even warned him that he would be blackballed in Hollywood. It was a tough condition, but Frawley agreed. Surprisingly, he proved everyone wrong by never arriving drunk and learning his lines after just one reading. In the end, Arnaz became one of Frawley's closest friends. Speaking of which, when I Love Lucy premiered in 1951, it became an instant hit. Frawley's portrayal of Fred Mertz, the cranky yet endearing landlord, made him a household name. But behind the scenes, things weren't so smooth, especially with his on-screen wife, Vivian Vance. A rocky partnership with Vivian Vance. I Love Lucy is one of the most beloved TV shows of all time. Many fans still consider it better than most modern sitcoms. The show made Lucille Ball and Desi Arnaz huge stars, and it also played a big role in shaping American pop culture. Scenes like Lucy's famous Vitamita Vegemin commercial are still remembered and quoted today. While Lucy and Ricky Ricardo were the heart of the show, their neighbors Ethel and Fred Mertz were just as important. The on-screen chemistry between Ethel and Fred added to the show's humor and charm. But behind the scenes, things were very different. Vivian Vance and William Frawley, who played the lovable couple, couldn't stand each other. Vance was not thrilled about playing the wife of a man 22 years older than her, and she didn't keep her feelings to herself. Frawley once overheard her complaining about their pairing, and it didn't sit well with him. From that moment on, their relationship was strictly professional, with little love lost between them. He once said, "She's one of the finest girls to come out of Kansas, but I often wish she'd go back there." Their feud lasted for years and became one of Hollywood's most well-known conflicts, a rocky start to a tumultuous relationship. When I Love Lucy started, Vivian Vance and William Frawley were cast as Ethel and Fred Mertz, the Ricardos' quirky neighbors. On screen, they made a perfect comedy duo, with Ethel often teaming up with Lucy to get into trouble while Fred grumbled in the background. However, their off-screen relationship was a disaster from the start. According to sources, things got bad the very first day Vance arrived at the studio. When she found out that Frawley would be playing her husband, she was less than pleased. She reportedly said, "Husband? That old coot could be my grandfather." Unfortunately for her, Frawley overheard the comment, and that was it. He held on to that remark for the rest of his life. Frawley was furious and took every chance he could to get back at Vance. He would often suggest lines that made fun of Ethel's looks, calling her things like a sack of doorknobs. Vance, on the other hand, called him Old Fat Freddy whenever she could. It quickly turned into an all-out insult war that lasted for years, an age gap that fueled the feud. One of the biggest issues that caused tension between Vance and Frawley was their age difference. When I Love Lucy first aired in 1951, Frawley was in his mid-60s, while Vance was in her early 40s. She didn't like the idea of being seen as the wife of a much older man, and she wasn't shy about sharing her feelings. Greg Oppenheimer, son of the show's producer Jess Oppenheimer, once explained, "Viv became upset at the fact that people so readily accepted her lovely young self as the wife of that old man," as she called him. Frawley didn't take kindly to such remarks. He saw them as a direct insult, and he made sure Vance knew it. Despite their ongoing war of words, the two managed to keep things professional when the cameras were rolling. They delivered their lines perfectly and kept audiences entertained. But when the cameras turned off, they went right back to disliking each other. Frawley's resentment ran deep. He once said, "She's one of the finest girls to come out of Kansas, but I often wish she'd go back there." His sharp remarks and constant jabs made working together difficult, but they both knew they had to make it work for the sake of the show. But did you know that even after I Love Lucy ended, their hatred didn't fade? In fact, it cost them a major opportunity: the spin-off that never happened. Desi Arnaz and Lucille Ball offered them a chance to star in their own spin-off show focusing on Fred and Ethel. It could have been a lucrative deal, but Vance wanted nothing to do with it. She flatly refused, not wanting to work with Frawley any longer. Frawley, on the other hand, saw the opportunity as a smart career move. But without Vance, the show couldn't happen. To make matters worse, the feud affected their relationship with the rest of the cast. While Lucille Ball and Desi Arnaz tried to stay neutral, it was no secret that tensions between the two actors made things uncomfortable for everyone. Despite their personal differences, both Vance and Frawley remained professionals on set. Frawley had a unique way of learning his lines. He would read the entire script once with the cast, then tear out all the pages except the ones with his lines. He focused only on his part, ensuring he got everything right. Frawley was also known for his love of baseball. He was a die-hard New York Yankees fan, and he made sure it didn't interfere with his work. He even had it written into his contract that he didn't have to work if the Yankees were playing in the World Series. Because of this, he missed 2 episodes of the show. Though Frawley was a committed professional, he had a reputation for drinking. CBS executives were worried he might cause problems on set. Desi Arnaz took him aside and gave him a stern warning. If he showed up drunk, forgot his lines, or missed rehearsals, he would be fired immediately. Surprisingly, Frawley kept his promise and never showed up drunk on set. J.K. Simmons, who played Frawley in the film Being the Ricardos, described his research into Frawley's life as a painting, not a photograph. Simmons said that while Frawley and Vance maintained a professional working relationship, the hatred between them was real and deeply rooted. Interestingly, Frawley and Vance had one thing in common: mothers who disapproved of their careers. Their mothers condemned their careers. Vivian Vance came from a strict religious family in Kansas. When she told her mother she wanted to be an actress, it wasn't received well. Her mother believed acting was sinful and could lead men into temptation. Even after Vance became successful, her mother refused to watch her shows, calling the money she earned Satan's money. Frawley's upbringing was similar. He was raised in a devout Irish Catholic family, and his mother wasn't supportive of his passion for show business either. She believed his work was wrong and often moved the family around to keep him away from performing. This strong parental influence made their journey into Hollywood even tougher. But both of them still managed to build successful careers. Despite their personal struggles and their mutual dislike, both actors delivered unforgettable performances. A feud that became a Hollywood legend. Over time, the tension between Vance and Frawley became one of the most well-known feuds in Hollywood. Their arguments, insults, and cold stares were no secret to those who worked on the show. Despite all the behind-the-scenes drama, their performances as Ethel and Fred Mertz were nothing short of brilliant. Frawley eventually moved on to another hit show, My Three Sons, where he played Bub O'Casey, the family's grandfather. But even there, he couldn't escape questions about Vance. His co-star Tim Considine recalled a time when military personnel visited the set and asked about Vance. Frawley's response was filled with a few choice words, ones that weren't suitable for print. Their feud became so legendary that it overshadowed much of their other work. Even today, fans remember the on-screen magic they created, even though their off-screen relationship was anything but friendly. Despite their off-screen tension, the duo's chemistry worked well on camera, making them one of TV's most beloved couples. CBS executives, however, always kept an eye on Frawley's behavior, worried his drinking would become a problem. But he remained professional, and even had it written into his contract that he wouldn't have to work during the World Series if his favorite team, the New York Yankees, were playing. This arrangement led to him missing 2 episodes of the show, missed opportunities and new beginnings. Even though I Love Lucy was a massive success, things didn't always go Frawley's way. When the show ended in 1957, Desi Arnaz and Lucille Ball offered him and Vance their own spin-off series. While Frawley was eager to continue as Fred Mertz, Vance had no interest in working with him again. She believed their characters wouldn't work without the Ricardos, and with that, the opportunity slipped away. By the late 1950s, Frawley found himself once again searching for work. Fortunately, another opportunity came knocking. In 1960, he joined the cast of My Three Sons, a popular sitcom starring Fred MacMurray. He played Bub O'Casey, the grumpy but lovable grandfather and housekeeper to a widowed father raising 3 boys. Though the role brought him back into the spotlight, Frawley found the production process challenging. Unlike I Love Lucy, which was filmed in order, My Three Sons used an out-of-sequence filming schedule to accommodate Fred MacMurray's limited availability. This meant long breaks between Frawley's scenes, which frustrated him. However, despite these challenges, he stayed on the show for several years, bringing his signature charm to the role. Speaking of which, Frawley's contributions to television didn't go unnoticed. During his time on I Love Lucy, he received 5 consecutive Emmy nominations for Outstanding Supporting Actor in a Comedy Series from 1953 to 1957. His work ethic and ability to bring humor to every role cemented his place in TV history. Though his later years were marked by health issues and the struggles of aging in Hollywood, Frawley remained a beloved figure. He continued to entertain fans with his classic grumpy charm, and his legacy lives on through reruns of his most famous shows, William Frawley's short-lived marriage and troublesome reputation. In 1914, William Frawley married Edna Louise Bloet, a fellow vaudeville performer. Together, they created an act called Frawley and Louise, which they performed across the country. Their act was light comedy with singing, dancing, and witty dialogue that entertained audiences wherever they went. However, their marriage didn't last. The couple separated in 1921 and officially divorced in 1927. Although no exact reason was given for their split, many believe Frawley's drinking problem played a major role. His struggles with alcohol often got him into trouble, and it may have affected their relationship as well. Despite their separation, their work together left an impression on audiences during the vaudeville era. Frawley's temper and drinking habits followed him throughout his career. In 1928, he was fired from the Broadway show That's My Baby after he punched his co-star Clifton Webb in the nose. This incident only added to his reputation for being difficult to work with. His behavior, combined with his heavy drinking, made it challenging for him to maintain steady work in Hollywood, but his talent always managed to bring him back. Years later, in 1961, Frawley appeared on the show This Is Your Life, where he was surprised by the appearance of his ex-wife Edna. Instead of being happy to see her, he was reportedly furious. This reaction gave a glimpse into how deeply their past still affected him, even decades later. Throughout his life, Frawley remained single and never had children. His focus stayed on his career despite the struggles and controversies that came with it. Frawley's decline. After I Love Lucy, William Frawley found a new role on the sitcom My Three Sons, where he played Bub O'Casey, the live-in grandfather. Although he was happy to have another steady job, things weren't easy for him. Unlike I Love Lucy, which was filmed in order, My Three Sons was filmed out of sequence to accommodate star Fred MacMurray's schedule. This made it hard for Frawley to keep up, and he struggled to adjust. As time went on, his health started to decline. After 5 seasons, he had to leave the show because he could no longer pass the studio's physical exams. According to his co-stars, Frawley's timing and energy were slipping. While he could still walk and talk, his sharp, comedic bark was gone. His departure from My Three Sons left him feeling empty. His co-star Stanley Livingston once said, "Bill wasn't married. He didn't have any kids or grandkids. All he really had at that time was My Three Sons, and when they took that away from him, he really had nothing to live for." Frawley's career had always been his priority, and losing his final job was a tough blow. He spent his last years mostly out of the spotlight, and his health continued to worsen. Vivian Vance, on the other hand, continued acting and made several TV appearances. Although she disliked Frawley, she never let their feud affect her career. Even after I Love Lucy, she remained in the entertainment world and found success in other projects. Final years of a classic TV star. William Frawley had a long career in show business, spanning from vaudeville to movies and television. But behind the scenes, his journey was filled with ups and downs, health struggles, and personal battles. Even though his acting career brought him fame, his later years were marked by decline and loneliness. By the time I Love Lucy ended in 1957, William Frawley was in his 60s. He had spent years playing the grumpy but lovable landlord Fred Mertz, and audiences adored him. However, despite the show's success, he was still under contract with Lucille Ball and Daisy Arnaz's production company, Desilu. When he was offered a role in another hit TV show, My Three Sons, he didn't hesitate to take it, even though it meant breaking his contract. At first, things seemed to be going well and his character fit right into the show, but over time it became clear that his health was failing. He started forgetting his lines, and the show's writers had to adjust scripts so that he could sit instead of stand in scenes. As his health declined further, Frawley began falling asleep in the middle of filming, and it got to a point where he could only remember a single line at a time. Eventually, he suffered a stroke and failed the studio's physical exam. The producers were told that he might not survive the rest of the season, so they had no choice but to replace him with another actor, William Demarest, who played Bub's brother. Losing the role was devastating for Frawley. His co-star Stanley Livingston once said, "All he really had at that time was My Three Sons, and when they took that away from him, he really had nothing to live for." His final days and sudden death. After leaving My Three Sons, Frawley's health continued to decline. He had surgery for a prostate condition, but his lifestyle and age made it difficult for him to recover fully. For most of his career, he lived alone on the top floor of the Hotel Knickerbocker in Hollywood. Many old vaudeville stars preferred hotel living, and it became his home for around 40 years. His only close companion was his sister, and they had recently moved into an apartment complex nearby. On March 3, 1966, Frawley was walking past the Hotel Knickerbocker when he suddenly collapsed. He suffered a massive heart attack right there on the sidewalk. Concerned bystanders pulled him into the hotel lobby and placed him on a couch, but he passed away shortly after. He was 79 years old. Despite his often grumpy personality, Hollywood mourned his loss. Daisy Arnaz, who had given Frawley his most iconic role, placed a full-page ad in the trade papers with a simple message, "Buenas noches, amigo." Arnaz, along with Fred McMurray and the producer of My Three Sons, served as pallbearers at his funeral. Lucille Ball also expressed her sadness, saying, "I've lost one of my dearest friends, and show business has lost one of the greatest character actors of all time." But on the other hand, Vivian Vance, his longtime on-screen wife and real-life rival, reacted very differently. Upon hearing the news of his passing, she was dining at a restaurant and reportedly stood up and said, "Champagne for everyone." This reaction shocked many, but it showed just how deep their hatred ran. In the end, both Vance and Frawley contributed to the success of I Love Lucy in their own way. They may have despised each other, but together, they created comedy gold that still makes audiences laugh decades later. But it was clear, their feud had lasted until the very end. His legacy in Hollywood. Although William Frawley faced many struggles, his contributions to television are unforgettable. He was honored with a star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame in 1960, located at 6322 Hollywood Boulevard. He was also inducted into the Television Academy Hall of Fame in 2012 alongside Vivian Vance. Frawley's influence reached beyond I Love Lucy. The production company behind the show, Desilu, became one of the biggest television studios of the 1950s and 60s, producing shows like Star Trek and Mission Impossible. His role as Fred Mertz helped cement the show's place in television history. Despite his personal struggles, Frawley continued to make appearances even in his later years. In 1965, he appeared on the panel show I've Got a Secret, where contestants had to guess his claim to fame, being the first performer to sing My Melancholy Baby in 1912. His final television appearance was in an episode of The Lucy Show, where Lucille Ball playfully referenced their past by saying, "You know, he reminds me of someone I used to know." And even though William Frawley became famous for playing grumpy characters, those who knew him well described him as a good-natured rascal. His sharp wit and no-nonsense attitude made him a unique presence in Hollywood. But his declining health, combined with his reputation for being difficult, led him to face loneliness in his final years. Frawley's life story was even turned into a stage play titled I Love Lucy. A funny thing happened on the way to the sitcom, written by Greg Oppenheimer, the son of the show's original producer. The play premiered in 2018 and was later broadcast on public radio. In 2021, J.K. Simmons portrayed Frawley in the movie Being the Ricardos, earning an Oscar nomination for his performance. Today, Frawley's memory lives on through the reruns of I Love Lucy, where his character Fred Mertz continues to bring laughter to audiences worldwide. His humor, charm, and unique presence made him a beloved part of American television history. William Frawley's funeral. William Frawley's funeral took place on March 6, 1966, at the Church of the Blessed Sacrament in Los Angeles, California. The service was attended by several notable figures from the entertainment industry. Desi Arnaz, Richard Wharf, and William Lundigan served as pallbearers, honoring their late friend and colleague. Actor Fred McMurray was also present to pay his respects. Outside the church, news reporters and cameramen gathered to capture the solemn event. Following the service, Frawley was laid to rest at the San Fernando Mission Cemetery, located just outside of Los Angeles. And as for the question of a surprise guest, there's no record of Vivian Vance attending William Frawley's funeral, and given their long-standing feud, it's safe to say she likely didn't. The tension between them was no secret, and their dislike for each other lasted long after I Love Lucy ended. And the way she reportedly reacted to his passing, shocking many, says a lot about the deep resentment that remained between them even after his death. Do you think their real-life feud made their on-screen performances even more believable? Or would the show have been better if they had gotten along? Share your thoughts in the comments below. And don't forget to hit like, subscribe, and stay tuned for more incredible stories from Hollywood's fascinating history. See you next time.